and every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
How many of you have ever looked around your industry and you thought, how are they getting all the opportunities? The keynote, the podcast interviews, the media features, the referrals, the clients. You look at what you're doing and you think, I am just as qualified. I've helped just as many people. I know I could deliver that presentation. I could help those clients. Yet somehow they seem to be getting opportunity after opportunity while you're still trying to figure out where the next client is coming from. Have you ever felt that way? I certainly have. See, for years, I thought the answer was simple, that I just needed to become better. So I kept learning. I collected certifications, read more books, gained more experience, worked with more people. I thought if I became enough of an expert, the opportunities would naturally follow. After all, isn't that what we've all been taught? Get really good at what you do, and eventually someone will notice. The problem is, that's not how business works. Because clients don't hire the best coach. They hire the coach they know. Organizations don't book the most qualified speaker. They book the speaker they've heard of, they've seen. Opportunities don't go to the world's best kept secret. They go to those who have become known for what they know. And that realization changed everything for me. So I am a physician by training, but I speak professionally on caregiving, supporting working caregivers, and workplace well-being. And now I'm a 2-time TEDx speaker, 2-time Disrupt HR speaker, international keynote speaker, author, winner of speaking awards. And as a speaker coach now and founder of Success Through Speaking, I help experts use speaking to become seen, heard, and remembered. But that is not where my story began. See, for much of my life, I was the quiet one. In fact, when I was growing up, someone once gave me a nickname, the Owl. Not because I was wise at that age, but because I was always watching, observing, listening. I wasn't the loudest person in the room. I wasn't the first to raise my hand, and I didn't want to be the center of attention. I was perfectly happy sitting in the back, quietly taking everything in. Which does make it a little ironic that today I spend a lot of my time speaking on stages around the country, but here's the interesting part. I never set out to become a speaker. I wasn't trying to build a brand. I wasn't chasing stages. I was doing what many of us have been taught to do. Work hard, get really good at what you do, serve people well, and trust that eventually someone will notice. Can anyone relate to that? That's exactly how I was trained, and maybe you've heard a version of that too. Whether you're a coach or a consultant or a business owner, we've been taught that expertise comes first, and it should. But here's a secret no one tells us. Expertise, it's optional. Visibility is essential. Now, why do I say that? There are a lot of people out there who don't have expertise, but a lot of visibility. There are a lot of experts with zero visibility. See, schools teach us how to become experts, but they don't teach us how to become known. And if you want to grow a business, that is something that you need to realize. Let me tell you a story that changed everything about that for me. I was once sitting in an audience at a conference. Picture this, a ballroom that is packed, hundreds of people in the room, and then the lights start to dim, the music starts, and the MC is now introducing the next speaker on stage. And her name appeared in giant letters across an enormous LED screen. And she's walking across the stage to the standing ovation. And I'm watching there. I'm sitting there in the audience. I'm watching. And I had a thought that kind of surprised me. And it wasn't, okay, maybe it was a little bit of jealousy. And I was thinking to myself, why her? But also in the back of my mind, why not me? Not because I thought I was better, but because I had spent years becoming an expert. And yet nobody outside of my immediate circle knew any of it. And if I'm really honest with myself, that realization, it stung. Now, I wasn't looking for fame. I wasn't trying to become famous. I wanted more people to benefit from what I'd spent years learning. And maybe you feel the same way too. So as I was sitting there, I asked myself another question. Why is it that some experts seem to create opportunity after opportunity? The keynotes, the interviews, the media features. Why is it that some people seem to be everywhere, while others, who are just as capable, they remain almost invisible? I realized I had spent years believing I had an opportunity problem or an expertise problem, but what I actually had was a visibility problem. Every day, there are brilliant coaches, consultants, and authors and experts that are overlooked, not because they are less qualified, not because they're not delivering incredible results, but because the people who need them don't know they exist. Is that you? See, I had spent nearly 20 years learning how to become an expert, no time learning how to become known. But once I understood the problem, the solution is obvious. And I stopped waiting to be discovered. I started becoming discoverable. And I started saying yes. I started raising my hand. I started applying to speak, pitching podcasts, creating content, putting myself in the rooms where the people who needed my message could actually find me. And little by little, one opportunity becomes another, one conversation another, one stage another. And over time, as my visibility grew, I started getting invitations to speak on workplace well-being, on caregiving, paid speaking opportunities, but also opportunities that then grew my business. And now experts begin hiring me to help them grow their own visibility through speaking. But here's what I want you to hear. Those weren't the cause, they were the result, not of becoming smarter, not of earning another credential, not of finally feeling ready. They were the result of changing one belief. See, I stopped believing that expertise alone creates opportunity. And I started believing something very different, that the people who create the most opportunities are not always the smartest. They're not always the most talented or the most qualified. They're the people who become known for what they know. So if becoming known creates opportunity, how do you actually become known? I've come to believe it comes down to three simple principles. First, people have to see you, then they have to hear you, and finally, they have to remember you. That's what I want to share with you today. So let's start with the first principle, be seen. When I say be seen, you might be thinking about social media, more followers, more reels, more content. Those things help. But I don't think that's where visibility begins. I think visibility begins much earlier. It begins with permission, permission to stop hiding, permission to stop waiting until everything is perfect, permission to believe that what you have already learned, what you've already experienced, and what you've already helped other people with has value. Because before the audience can see your expertise, you have to stop hiding it. For years, I confused humility with invisibility. I thought staying humble meant staying quiet. But your work can't speak for itself if nobody knows your work exists. Remember this, visibility isn't ego, visibility is service. If people don't know you exist, they can't hire you, they can't refer you, and they certainly cannot benefit from your expertise. The people that you are called to help, they can't find you. That is the real cost of staying invisible. And you don't need millions of followers. You don't need to go viral. You simply need to become known by the people who need what you do. Speaking is a vehicle that can grow any business. It's one of the fastest ways I've found to build trust, establish authority, and become known for what you know. But being seen is the first step. People can know your name and still have no idea why they should work with you. That's where the second principle comes in. You have to be heard. When I say heard, people think I'm going to talk about public speaking, how to use your voice and tell better stories. Those things matter, but they're not the only reason why some speakers consistently grow their business while others don't. For years, I've kept asking myself, how do I get people to listen, hold their attention, make my presentations more engaging? Then I realized I was asking the wrong question. The better question is this: how do I help people in the audience feel understood? See, when people feel heard, they hear you. Think about the people you trust most: a coach, a mentor, a friend. Was it because they had all the answers? No. It was because they made you feel understood. They listened, they were curious, they asked thoughtful questions, they understood your challenges before they offered solutions. That is what creates trust. And trust is what grows any business. One of the biggest mistakes I see speakers and experts make is that they spend the first 10 minutes trying to prove how smart they are. But the audience isn't sitting there wondering, is this person impressive? They're wondering, can this person help me? Two very different questions. Your audience doesn't need to be convinced that you are an expert. They need to believe that you are their expert. Very different. And the fastest way to do that isn't by talking more about yourself, it's by helping them see themselves inside your story. Even if you're not talking with them one-on-one, you're standing on stage. You can still use story to do this. And I'll give you an example. When I first started speaking about caregiving, I would open with stats about millions of caregivers and burnout and stress, and everything I said was accurate. Everything was evidence-based. People applauded and then they left. Nothing happened. But I changed one thing. Instead of opening with stats, I opened with my story about when my mom got sick and the uncertainty I had to navigate, the fear that comes with all of that. Suddenly, people weren't thinking about millions of caregivers. They were thinking about their mom, their dad, their family. None of the facts had changed, but what changed when I used story was connection. That is why stories matter so much. Not because they're entertaining, but because they are the bridges that connect your expertise to someone else's life and make someone in the audience feel heard. They'll start to think that's exactly what I've been struggling with. And when that happens, something powerful changes. They stop thinking that was a good presentation. They start thinking, I need to listen to this person. So we talked about being seen, which starts with giving yourself permission to become more visible. We talked about being heard, which starts with hearing the audience first and connecting with them first, often through story. But that isn't enough. Someone can see you, someone can hear you, and still forget about you tomorrow. So how do you become the person they remember, the person they recommend, the person they call when that opportunity appears? So that's the third principle, become remembered. And I think this is where many speakers may leave money on the table. See, great presentations should not end when the presentation ends. Think about it. Think about the last networking event that you went to and you walked away thinking, I'd love to stay in touch with that person. And then life happens. You get on a plane, you go back to work, you answer your email Monday morning, you've forgotten about that person. So how do you fix that? You need to offer a next step with them. That is how you stay on top of mind. The presentation is simply that intro. The business happens afterwards. So you have to get comfortable asking for that next step. Even if it's time, an email, an opportunity to work together, or their credit card. That ask, that call to action is how you keep the conversation moving forward and keep the relationship going. That is how you stay remembered. So make the offer, ask for the contact, schedule the call, build a relationship, and that is how you can use speaking. Remember, speaking is not the business. It is the engine that grows the business. So today we talked about becoming seen, having the courage to stop hiding your expertise so the people that need you can find you. We talked about becoming heard. Helping people feel heard allows them to hear you and your message. And you do that through story. And we talked about becoming remembered, creating relationships that continue long after the applause. And you do that by putting in that offer, that call to action. Because when those three things come together, you don't just become a better speaker, you become the person that people think of, they trust, they recommend and hire. And that is what it means to become known for what you know. Now I'm going to practice what I preach. I came in front of you today on this platform to become more visible. I shared with you my story so that you could see that you don't need to be born an expert speaker to become an expert who speaks. Now I want to show you how to do that. So I'd like you to follow me at successthroughspeaking.com. I've got a free masterclass I'm hosting on July 23rd. I do this once a month. It's called The Secret Path that expert speakers use to get paid again and again. So today's session is about why speaking creates opportunity. The masterclass is about how. You can check it out at successthroughspeaking.com. But remember, the people who create the most opportunities are not always the smartest. They're not the most talented. They're not the most qualified. They're simply the people who become known for what they know. And I hope that you'll become one of them by becoming more seen, more heard, and more remembered. So thank you for your time today.
Together we are Global Speakers Talk.